In this video, we're covering the new scenarios in the Middle-Earth SBG Match Play Guide. Hello and welcome to another Top Table video. You're joined by me, Top Table Jay.
And I'm Top Table Ben.
And today it is new book day and we are doing something very exciting, which is covering the new 6 scenarios in the Match Play Guide.
Yeah.
How excited are you, man?
I'm really excited. So I think we've already done like a bit of a quick overview and a review video.
A speed read. We've flown through the book and we've kind of hit the highlight reel of the new stuff.
Absolutely. But we didn't really dwell on the 6 new scenarios, so we want to just take a bit of time to have a look, a closer look at these scenarios. So should we dive in?
Let's dive in. It is an exciting time to be a Middle-Earth player because, as a lot of us veterans who've played a long time now, we've played every army in the 12 scenarios, so we get something new to sink our teeth into, which is really exciting. So we have 6 new scenarios, which you can likely see a little bit of on screen right now, and we'll start with scenario 13, which is command the battlefield. So this is our new Maelstrom deployment scenario.
Yes, it is.
So the armies, let's go through this. So starting positions, your forces are yet to arrive. Models are not deployed at the start of the game, but they will come on as the game continues. So you roll for priority. The game lasts until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25%. At that point, the list that scored the most victory points wins the game. If both players have the same number of victory points, it's a draw. So, scoring, you score 1 victory point for each quarter of the board that has more friendly models than enemy models wholly within it. For each quarter of the board that has at least double the number of models in it, you score 2 victory points. So this is a zone control one, but with Maelstrom deployment, which is really going to mix things up.
It is really going to mix things up.
This reminds me very much of the scenario we all learned how to play Warcry in, No Quarter. If you remember, we covered it on a channel a couple of times.
We did,
so maybe they've taken a bit of inspiration there. But you also score a victory point for wounds on enemy leader, and if you kill the leader, you score 2. And you get 1 victory point if the force is broken at the game. If not, you score 2. So an interesting thing is, this isn't 12 like the others. So whereas the first 12 were all available to be 12-0, this is 6, and I think that's partly due to
you get 1 for each quarter.
Ah, of course.
So
you silly me. Ignore
you are
me.
able
what
to
am
get
I talking?
12.
They're brand new. We've not read them yet, or I haven't anyway.
I've read them.
Cool. So we've got special rules. Worthless land. The centre of the battlefield provides very little tactical value and is not much use to either force. Models wholly within 12 of the centre of the battlefield don't count as being in any quarter when working out victory points.
So that's quite cool. So how many times have you just played a game and it's all everybody's ended up in the middle?
Yeah,
this is
run for the
forcing
middle.
You to kind of go for the outside of the board, really.
Of course.
And obviously we've got Maelstrom as well, which is a special rule. So everybody deploys, or you can be deployed pretty much anywhere on the board. You can all come on together. You can get the jump on your enemy, on smaller enemy warbands. We all love a bit of Maelstrom deployment. Well, we both love it and hate it.
No, it's my favourite.
Really?
I never, even when it screws me, I love it. And the good thing about this is it turns Maelstrom on its head. Yeah. Because you don't you deploy, you can might it. There's a lot of tactics in how you deploy in Maelstrom, and you would usually rush to get your force together. In this one, if you rush to the middle to meet,
then actually
you're out of the scoring.
Exactly. So you almost want your you want to come on different sides of the board.
It's going to force the skirmish to happen on the outer edges. So straight into the thick of battle. No running, regrouping, shooting. It's going to be a pretty bloody one, and stuff. It's going to get, as we know from playing the variant scenario in Warcry, it's going to get super tactical when you're kind of making sure that you've got the movement, because you never want to step into the quarters until the end of the game, and making sure you've got the position.
And you want to make sure that you've got more than your opponent, so you do still need to be doing that killing. You can almost sort of see it as do you run for the middle and then just hope that towards the end of the game everybody split out, or do you try and take control? If you've got a horde of goblins or something like that, do you just spread them across the entire board and just kind of hope that there are enough left at the end of the game to you're relying on your opponent not being able to kill you quickly enough to kind of score those points. So that will be an interesting one. I think it does, as you say, it turns Maelstrom on its head.
So which armies do you think are good and bad for command the battlefield? I mean, I think a horde army is going to come off quite well.
Yes,
because it can just even when it's 25%ed, it can still have lots of numbers in quarters.
Let's say even if you've got 40 models, you should have 10 models
when the game ends,
or 9 models when the game ends. So you should still have a few there. So it's going to be really really difficult to tell. I'm not entirely sure who will do particularly well. I think this is quite a balanced one, if you ask me.
I think I agree, but I think there's definitely one list that won't do well in this, which is all hero.
Yes, yeah.
That's going to be it's going to be a real tough for an elite hero list.
If you're only taking 3 models, let's say, or 4 models, you are really going to have you're going to have to do a lot of killing, and B, then you've got to make sure that they are in 4 different quarters, which can be quite tough when generally you want to be maximising your might, by keeping them all together, so you get charges and heroic moves, etc. So this is going to be a very tough one for.
But the beauty of the new scenario pool means that this will be separate with the other maelstroms. So if you're going to have a bad matchup, it's isolated in this one.
Exactly.
Should
we move on to the next one?
Let's do it. So we've got scenario 14, which is retrievals. So do you want to cover this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the scenario outline is reclaim what was stolen by the enemy and escape the battlefield with it. The armies in the layout are same as all other scenarios. Starting positions, both players roll a d6. The player with the highest result chooses one of the corners of the board, and their opponent automatically has the opposite. A line is drawn between the 2 corners, chosen corners, and both players then place a single objective marker 15 inches away from the corner along this line. The board is split into 2 halves, and essentially there is another line which is 3 inches down from the middle line, and that's like a no man's land sort of thing. So nobody can deploy within that 3 inches. So it's a completely new way of deploying.
Yep, it's interesting.
So normally we see kind of the board split into 2 halves, whereas now it's split in half diagonally, which you see quite a bit in 40k.
Yeah,
and so this is kind of a brand new way of deploying.
It mixes up the whole my board half, your board half, 12 on 24.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a scenario where the game ends, or might end, when one of the forces has been broken. On the roll of a 1 or 2, the game ends, otherwise the game continues for another turn. In terms of scoring victory points, you score 1 victory point if your opponent's relic has moved from its original position at the end of the game. If you retrieve your opponent's relic, you instead score 3 victory points. If you retrieved your opponent's relic and the model holding it in your deployment zone, you instead score 5 victory points. If you've retrieved your opponent's relic and managed to move it off the board via either of the board edges in your deployment zone, you instead score 7 victory points. So that's a big escalation. That's a long old
way to move it, though, isn't it? Look.
It is, yeah. You've got to move it from within 15 inches of your opponent's corner. So that is going to be tough. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds on the enemy leader. If you've killed the enemy leader, you instead score 2 victory points, and you score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, you instead score 3 victory points.
Nice.
So the big one there is focusing on the relic. You've got to do a lot of work otherwise if you're not doing anything with the relic.
The interesting thing is, though, because the deployment line is diagonal, it makes it longer. The room you've got to deploy is more, so you can't just deploy in the middle like you would and fortify. There's going to be lots of like little vanguard flanking units to steal the relic, and it's not just going to be lines hit, because there's so much space to defend and also attack through.
Which I think is
going to be really dynamic.
Put a diagonal line through it rather than just a straight line. The relic is a light object. A relic is considered to be retrieved if at the end of the game it is being carried by a friendly model. If a relic has been picked up by an enemy model and is then subsequently dropped or retaken by a friendly model, then a player must try to return it to its original position as quickly as possible. Until it has been picked up by an enemy model, friendly models may not pick up their own relic. Which makes sense. So it means that you can't kind of give it to somebody and they're running around the table and everybody else is chasing them, which is good. They have
but you can pick it up once an enemy model has.
Yeah, but I think it must be returned to the original position.
Yeah, makes sense.
That'll be an interesting one. So who do you think will do well in that one?
I think movement is going to be key.
Yeah.
The relic is, of course, up to 7 of the victory points there outside of like leader and breaking.
Yeah.
So I think something that can move, like stuff with fly.
Yeah.
So something that can fly over the initial deployment lines with priority will be huge. So like your 10-inch move.
Can models with fly carry a light object?
Well, a ring wraith could dismount, couldn't it?
Yes.
It's going to struggle getting back.
Yeah.
But a ring wraith and fell beast could fly there and get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interestingly, yes. So cavalry army is going to do well.
Yeah.
I think flying dudes are going to do the best there.
Yeah.
I think off the top of my head, it's Radagast on Eagle or the Ring Wraiths that are going to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think anything that's got movement. I'm thinking European Scouts maybe. They're moving. 8 inches a turn, plus with all the extra buffs and things, they could be moving even further.
This is a really good scenario for stuff like blocks of crossbows, because you could deploy in the middle and stick your crossbows just staring at the relic. So if anything goes for it, you don't have to move and you just volley it with strength 4 fire. Yeah. So there's some interesting stuff there.
So yeah, that's quite cool. So that will be another interesting scenario to get our teeth into.
Yeah. Cool. So next up is Breakthrough, and this is interesting because I believe this is now in all 3 of GW's games. This is also in AOS and 40k, or it has been in the past. So the usual, with the armies and stuff is a standard. So layout, set up the terrain as described on page 136 of the manual, then place 4 objective markers on the place. These are placed exactly 12 from the centre of one player's board edge, and another is placed 12 from the centre of the other player's board edge, and then the last 2 are placed 12 inches away from the centre of the board on opposite sides along the centre line of the board. So you get, it makes a diamond.
Yes.
With the centre point of the diamond being the middle of the table, which is really interesting. You then deploy. Deployment is the full board half, so you roll and obviously alternate deploying within 24, which is interesting. So, objectives. The game lasts until a turn where one force has been reduced to a quarter of its starting number, at which point the force that scored the most victory points wins the game. And scoring victory points, you get 1 VP if you have more friendly models than enemy models within 3 of the objective in your own deployment zone. For each of the objectives on the centre line of the board, you get 1 VP if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3. If there are at least 1 friendly model and no enemy models within 3, you score 2. And then you score 2 victory points if there are more friendly models within 3 of the objective marker in your opponent's deployment zone. And if there's at least 1 friendly model and no enemy models within 3, you score 4. So basically, your home objective's worth 1, the middle are worth 2, and your opponent's is worth 4, working both ways. So it really forces you to kind of push each. And you find that the late game, like you start swinging around because you
want to protect your own.
Yeah, of course.
But obviously, you want to be trying to push for that extra 4 victory points.
Of course, and then we've got the usual 1 or 2 victory points for leader, and we've got a 1 victory point for broken at the end of the game. Yeah. So really, this is your new objective based one.
This is like hold ground, but on speed.
Yes, it is.
So it's kind of, it isn't just 1 in the centre of the board. You've got the 4, and obviously with them all being worth different amounts of points, it means that you just can't just castle around your own, or you could just castle around your own, but actually you're only going to score very limited.
You can literally deploy on the 2 middle ones as well. Yeah, because it's 24 inch environment. So literally, walls are going to hit, and it's going to be a numbers game in the middle, and it's people who can get round. And knowing from playing this scenario a lot in AOS, it's being able to attack the opponent objective and reliably clear it. That's going to be what wins and loses this game.
Absolutely. So would you potentially be tempted to deploy your entire army just around one of the left or right objectives and just try and work round? Or
the problem with doing that is there's then a gap for them to march on your home, their opponent objective. I would probably still try and deploy across both, but maybe with enough of a warband to go and threaten the back objective. It's a really interesting one, and I've played it a lot in AOS, and it's one of the ones that adds so much variance, and like mid-game, it really makes you have to reassess your game plan, change it up, and keep yourself on your toes, which is great fun, and that's what we want, really.
Makes sense. So, scenario 16, destroy the supplies. This one is one that I'm quite looking forward to getting my teeth into. Scenario outline is destroy your opponent's supplies whilst protecting your own. In terms of the layout, you set up terrain as described on page 136 of the Middle-Earth Strategy Battle Game Rules Manual, then place 3 objective markers in each player's deployment zone so the objectives are equidistant along the edge of each player's deployment zone, with 1 in the centre. The first is placed 12 inches from the centre of the player's board edge. The others are then placed halfway between the central objective and the board edge on either side, so that all 3 objective markers are equidistant along the edge of one player's deployment zone. So that sounds like quite a lot, but basically
12 inches between each.
Yeah, there's 6
12 inches from each edge and 1 in the middle.
You've got 3 on your side, 3 on your opponent's side. The opponents choose, basically roll a dice the person with the highest dice roll gets to choose which half they want to go want first. And when this has been done, the opposing player chooses one of their warbands and deploys it within 12 inches of their board edge, as described above. Players then alternate until all of their warbands have been placed.
Nice.
In terms of objectives, the game lasts until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to a quarter of the starting number. So this is basically getting down to 25%. And if both players have the same number of victory points, the game is a draw. In terms of scoring victory points, you score 2 victory points for each enemy supply marker that has been destroyed. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds on the enemy leader. If you kill the enemy leader, you instead score 2 victory points. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, you instead score 2 victory points. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have at least 1 banner and your opponent has none remaining, then you instead score 2 victory points. So if you're starting with a banner, then you are at a bit of an advantage there.
Especially if they don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, that could be, you know, if you are just after a draw, you could just castle around yours and just or, you know, if you're after a very easy win, just castle around your banner and hopefully it'll survive by the end of the game. In terms of special rules, there are supply markers. The objective markers represent a series of supplies that both sides are trying to destroy. To destroy an enemy supply marker, a model must be in base contact with the marker during the end phase of a turn, having not cast any magical powers, used a missile weapon, been involved in a fight, or been under the effects of paralyze, immobilize, or transfix magical powers during that turn. Once supply marker has been destroyed, remove it from play.
That's a really interesting special rule. So obviously there's 6 victory points for destroying your opponent's 3 objectives, and it means like it's actually quite tough to get to the opponent's side of the board, and then you need to not only hit it, but you're going to have to get in a way that you can tag all the enemy models, so you can't be countercharged, because obviously if you're in a fight you can't break it, and then sit unobjective on it. And I mean, most people are going to build a semicircle around those.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're not going to be as easy to snatch as you think. So it's kind of obviously not revealing it to your opponent. You're probably like, right, I'm going to play for the middle and left one, but I'm going to try and bait them into thinking I'm after the right one. And its allocation of forces in deployment will be huge in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a really cool one, actually.
What I quite like about this is you're in heirlooms, and you know you've got all the objectives, and you have to roll a 6 to dig up the heirloom. This is all you need to do is be sat on it, rather it's kind of removed that element of
how annoying is it when someone goes first dice 6?
Yeah, exactly. And you've essentially, without doing a lot of work, you've essentially lost that. Because all they need to do is
you've then got to run everything over to that.
Exactly. There's nothing that you can do about that. Whereas this is purely they have to just be sort of sat on it, and it kind of removes that element of kind of randomness from it.
But they have given you a lot of ways to counter losing them. Like, so it talks about being involved in a fight, paralyze, immobilize, transfix, or you can have your heroes, even if you get tagged, they you'll be throwing the heroic combats to then lasso into the guy on the objective. So it's going to make for some really interesting, like, you're going to have 3 really cool fights going on the table at once.
And all important fights as well.
Yes,
so,
very much.
You know, it's that one's really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. Do you think there are any armies in particular that are going to be good at that one? Again,
numbers are going to be great in this one. This is the sort of scenario that in the last turn of game can go from massive victory to a massive loss. This is the swingy one if you play it wrong. I think numbers are going to be really good. Something that hits hard, that can reliably clear an objective. The only problem with going more elite is you're going to leave yourself so you can't go at all 3 quite aggressively. There's a force of a balanced, like there's reasoning for balancing the best between numbers and strength in all these scenarios. They are really making you think about your composition. Numbers are key. I don't really think movement helps a huge amount in this.
No.
Because numbers would be able to move into the middle of the board and block you getting near them, and leave enough to fortify the back end.
The only thing I can think of is, you know, if you have got a bit more manoeuvrability on your side and the extra speed, you know, you can get towards your opponent's objectives and actually think that it might put them on the back foot, and they think, well, actually, I need to go and protect that a little bit more.
Going at yours.
And then they're not going at yours. So actually, it's that not necessarily a bluff, but you know,
it's the play and counter play, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, if they've got a slightly weaker objective, then you know you can, if you charge right up, you know, if you're heroic marching across the field to get to them as quickly as possible to kind of take on that weaker objective, then you know you can kind of take advantage of that, and then obviously they have got they'll be focusing more on trying to stop you from doing that rather than coming at you. So potentially something with a little bit more mobility.
Definitely. Cool. So next scenario 17 is divide and conquer. So the layout for this one is, as usual, is the setup of terrain is described as page 136 of the book. Place one objective marker in the centre of the board, another halfway between the centre objective and the centre of the eastern board edge, and another halfway between the central objective and the centre of the western board edge. So you're going to have a...
so you've got 3 objectives, correct, essentially, across
again,
the
12
centre of, across the centre of the board.
So both players roll a d6 and player with the highest score chooses 2 opposing corners to be their deployment zones and labels them A and B. Their opponent has the other 2 corners and labels them A and B. We've got like 12-inch bubble corner deployment. This is brand new.
This is cool.
This is exciting. So the player who scored highest then deploys one of their warbands within corner A. The other player then does the same, and then you go to corner B, and then so it's A B, both deploying a warband until down. So it's going to be really interesting the order you deploy, looking at what your opponent's still got left to put down. So there's going to be a bit of a bluff mechanic in deployment here, and plus a 12-inch bubble is really interesting, and things like terrain are going to make this a really tough choice.
Absolutely.
So the objective, once one force has been broken, the game might suddenly end on a roll of a 1 or 2. At the end of the game, the force that scored the most VPs wins the game. If they scored the same, it's of course a draw, and the victory point conditions are: you score 3 victory points if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3 of the central objective. If there is friendly models and no enemy models, it's worth 5. So the centre is where the money's at in this one. For each other objective, you score 1 if there are more friendly than enemy, and 2 if there are friendly and no enemy models. And then you score 1 victory point for wounds on a leader, 2 for killing him, and broken is worth a point as well. So what's really interesting is if you hold the middle one uncontested, it's 5. The other 2 combined are only 4. So that middle objective is crucial.
Is a key one.
But look, if the thing with these being 12 inches apart, if you're sat on the middle objective and they've got the left and right one, there's dudes either side of you.
So you could really castle around that middle objective, but if they hold the other 2, then you need to be kind of a bit more aggressive and try and contest at least one of them to. It's
interesting, isn't it? Because it's A and B opposing corners, you're both going to have half your force hit the left and both have half hit the right. And it's who can kind of come out early and get over the middle.
I think what this will potentially do is, because you're deploying your warbands in different corners. It will potentially change army composition, because I've always had, I've historically, when I've played, I've had one kind of strong warband, should we say, and then I've kind of had some sort of slightly weaker warbands. This scenario might make me think, now, do I need to kind of have them a bit more evenly split so that one of my warbands isn't going to just be an easy one to destroy. My opponent sends both of their forces to destroy one warband, and hope, probably more than likely take it out if they've got their combined forces against one, and then they can easily come and contest the rest of the objectives. So I think this might change my army composition a little bit in terms of.
I'd say the same thing. In a lot of lists I've written, you'll take like Hero A and max out his warband, and then you might have a couple of mid-level heroes that you're like, they're just going to ride solo. I don't need to split them, and they're kind of drops you can do while you're waiting to see what your opponent deploys. But in this scenario, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble and on the back foot. You
could. So I think this might change the way that you build your army a little
exciting.
bit. And then the last scenario, which is Assassination.
This one excites me. This was in the community.
This one's cool, so the outline is you're using your assassins to slay your target to achieve victory. Starting positions, both players roll a d6. The player with the highest result choose one of the deployment zones. They then select the warband in their force to deploy within 24 inches of their board edge. Models may not be deployed further than 6 inches from the captain of their warband. So essentially, half boards on this one. The objectives: once one force has been broken, the game might suddenly end. At the end of the turn after this condition has been met, roll a d6. On a 1 or 2, the game ends, otherwise the battle continues for another turn. In terms of scoring victory points, you score 1 victory point if your target has suffered 1 or more wounds. If your target has suffered 1 or more wounds and your assassin caused at least 1 wound, you instead score 3 victory points. If your target has been slain, you instead score 5 victory points. If your target has been slain and the assassin caused a fatal wound, you instead score 7 victory points.
So cool.
So very cool. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds on the enemy leader. If you kill the enemy leader, you instead score 2 victory points. You can score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, you instead score 3 victory points. In terms of the target, at the start of the game, secretly note down one of your opponent's hero models This is your target for the game. This may not be your opponent's leader unless they only have one hero. And the assassin, at the start of the game, secretly note down one of your hero models. This is your assassin. This may not be the leader unless you have one hero. So again, this is going to make me question how I build my army, because
it's terrifying.
What I've done a few times, what I tend to do is take one. The way I like to play is I like to take one big hero, such as LSR or something like that, and then just take minor heroes,
support heroes, your Baragons, and your little stuff to boost numbers.
So what then makes this very difficult is actually it's going to be, they're probably going to be the target, and B, they're going to have to be the assassin, so they're probably not going to be very good at assassinating.
Do you know what the real interesting mind game is, though?
What's that?
If me and you are playing, and I'll try and figure out who your assassin's going to be and make it the target, because it's going to be the model that's so let's say if you've got Super Killy Monster, right? I'm going to assume you're going to make him the assassin, which makes it the obvious choice for my target, because you're going to be playing offensively with it, not hiding him. So there's going to be like a bluff mechanic in who you put forward as well.
And it also is going to make me think, well, actually, I don't want to just take 2 heroes in my list now. I might want to take 3, so that actually it makes you second guess which one is going to be my my assassin or my target.
And you're going to play really coy until you've got that pivotal strike. You're not just going to be like, oh look, one hero's running forward, the other 2 aren't. You're going to have to try and hide.
You've got to, you charge some of your weaker heroes kind of into their lines. Just take on a few troops just to make it seem like you are.
I've got it figured out. My assassin's going to be Alfred or something. No one will see that coming. But it's really interesting.
Even if you choose Alfred, hit for him to get any kills, and depending on who their their assassin is, it could be really.
Do you know who I really like for this?
Who's
the
that?
Undying. So you can use Willer's Fate, Compel, Black Dart. Like, the Undying is a legit model for this scenario. It's pretty durable.
He's built for it.
Yeah, he is really pretty durable. He's got the stuff like Compel to pull out the hero.
Yeah,
he can Black Dart it. I think there are lots of heroes that are good. But what I love about this, it isn't just the aggressive, I'm going to try and get your guy. It's the play and counterplay of not revealing who mine is, and worrying that your target is my assassin.
And I think the other thing is that the fact that it can't be leaders as well. It really does add that extra kind of level of kind of tactical, list building tactics and kind of playing.
But look at your list. LSR can't be LSR.
Yeah, exactly.
So at that point, it's like, yo, Baragon, you've got work to do.
Yeah, you've got some serious work to do, and please don't die whilst you do it.
Exactly.
So I think that this one is probably going to make me think about how I build my lists in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And that is
I'm sort of thinking which heroes do you think would make good assassins?
Yeah, but not obvious targets. It's really tough.
It's really tough. So that one I think will take a bit of thinking, but I'm looking forward to getting these played. So should we get back in front of the camera?
Let's do it. Okay, so there we have it. Those are the 6 new scenarios from the Match Play Guide. What do you think?
Yep, love them. I think
so good.
What's quite interesting as well is that there was only one in here that had got a banner. You only get one. Only one scenario where there are banner points. Because I know that's been a bit of a criticism in the past, where people haven't got necessarily got access to banners. So, for example, Goblin Town and things, I know a few people have had a few concerns around that. But the fact that from the 6 there's only one that contains banner points is interesting. But I think it's going to add a huge amount of variety to games. Where as I said earlier, we've played the 12 original scenarios to death. Having an extra 6 now will just really increase that variety.
I was trying to convince Steve that we should run he's right as well. I wanted to do a 1-day 6-game 500-point event. It'd be a long day where we just play the new 6 scenarios.
That'd be cool.
That would be really. It would be probably a long day. So I think we're still going to do it, but maybe do 4 games. But I can't wait to get stuck into these, and there's so much nuance in them that maybe we take for granted because of how much we've played the original 12. There's going to be a serious learning curve, which is exciting. Now, if you had to pick one that you're excited for, which is it? Tough, right?
It's really tough. There isn't one that kind of automatically jumps out at me. I like Destroy the Supplies. I think that will be a good one. And I think command the battlefield as well, because obviously there's the Maelstrom deployment, and you're trying to get into the quarters as well. I think that's one. What about you?
So retrieval and assassination are the two that jump out. But the problem is, between us, we basically just said we love them all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And who doesn't want new ways to play this awesome game, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think that's it. That has been our review of the new singles scenarios from the Match Play Guide. As always, I've been Top Table Jay.
And I've been Top Table Ben.
Make sure you check out the other videos on the channel. Check out all of our social media links down below, Patreon and all that jazz. Your support for the channel is massively appreciated. And until next time, see you later.
See you later.